Hello and welcome to 6.4 Personal Loans, Lines of Credit, and Overdrafts. So there's a few terms that we have to figure out here first. Um, the first one is going to be something called an amortization period. So what we're talking about here is how long a bank is going to give you to pay back your loan. So yeah, so they might say your amortization period, if it was like a house or if it was over a certain period, it might be like 20 years or something like that, right? If we move on down a little bit, so over here, a line of credit is an approved amount that allows you to draw on as needed with interest charged on the money only that you use though. So with our house, with my house, we were actually given like a line of credit along with it too. So instead of putting things on credit cards, if it's a big purchase like a truck or something like that, we usually put it on our line of credit, and that's because it's a good interest rate, and we don't have to pay a lot like a bad credit card or a payday loan would be probably the very worst thing you'd want to do. Yeah, so it's all about having that good interest rate. So lines of credit are usually pretty good for that, but sometimes you can get like a bad interest rate on a line of credit too, so you don't want to go crazy with that either. Okay, next one. You guys might have actually seen this one if you have a bank card. Overdraft protection. It's down here too, I guess. Another. Um, Overdraft protection is just if you go past that zero. Let's say that you had $200 in your bank account, and then you bought something for $250, so you're negative $50 in your bank account, then that's an overdraft protection. So it's going to be okay with it. It's going to let you go into the hole a little bit without charging you a crazy amount of interest. Usually your bank is going to have you pay, I don't know, like $5 a month or something like that if you want that overdraft protection. It depends. If you're going to go over, then it's probably worth it, because if you don't have overdraft protection, and let's say you were sitting there with negative $100 in your bank account, they start charging you a crazy amount of interest for that money that you've gone over, unless you have that overdraft protection. So that's kind of how that works. And then lastly, a big theme about this first part is these payday loans. They're awful. They're the commercials you see on TV, like the Money Tree or whatever they are, and you see them driving down the streets a lot of times too. That's like a fast cash place. You can go in and you can get a loan really quickly, but the interest rates are crazy, and you can get in a lot of trouble if you guys use these things for more than a few days. And then lastly, the last term here is default. And when you default on your payments, that just means you failed to make your payments. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and look at number one for an example, but I'm going to move on to the first question. So this one's similar anyway. Number one says Baru borrowed $250 from a payday loan company. So those are those terrible ones, and had to repay $275 in 15 days. Calculate the annual interest rate. So what we need to figure out first is how much did he actually pay in interest? Well, he actually borrowed 250 and had to pay 275. So all I'm going to do is go 275 minus 250, and you figure out that that's $25. So we paid $25 in interest. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two, where they're talking about interest and interest rates and stuff. This is just going to be our simple interest rate formula. So I is equal to PRT. Remember what these things stand for. I is interest. P is your principal. I often think about it as like how much you put down, or how much actually went down first. R was your interest rate, and T was your period, or your time that you were using it for. So we are after R in the end. That's what we're looking for in this question. So we actually have all these other things already though. So the way I'm going to solve this is by just filling things in as I go. So I know what the interest rate is, or sorry, how much money we made in interest. That was $25. So what I'm going to do is just write down $25 right there. So that should be a 5. That's equal to, well, how much did we, I guess not put down, but what was the original principal? That's 250. R is what we're looking for. So I'm just going to leave it as R. You can write like a little dot there to show we're multiplying that if you want, or just leave it like that. And then the time, annual interest rate. Well, remember this time is going to be measured in years, and it's annual. That means years. So that's just 1. Oh, sorry, actually, I wasn't thinking there. It is not 1. Just erase that for a second. So 250, let's write the R. And then, sorry, it was that 15 days that we borrowed it for. So we need to put that 15 days into years. I was just testing you. No, I missed it. So what we're going to do to figure out what 15 days is in years, all you need to do is multiply by 15 days divided by, and how many days are in a year. So there's 365 days in a year. So you don't really need the units there if you don't want, but we'll just go 15 days over 365. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just multiply these things together, or divide them right now, I mean. So I'll go 15 divided by 365, and that's that, 0.041, we'll see. So I'm just going to rewrite it with that. I'm going to move it on up here. So rating everything I have, we got 25 is equal to 250. We're looking for R, and then that was 0.041. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to multiply 250 by this over here. It doesn't matter that that R is in the middle. That's just all this stuff gets multiplied. So I'm just going to multiply those two things first to kind of make them one number, just to make it a little bit less confusing. So I'm going to keep on working down. Just write my 25 again. So 25 is equal to, and then 250 times that number we just had. So that number I just had still in my calculator. So I'm just going to leave it there and go times 250. So 10.27. So it's going to be 10.27, and then we're looking for R. Okay, now we're close. The last thing we have to do is I want to get R on its own, so we need to get rid of this 10.27. So a lot of people would say that we need to subtract 27, but that's not quite right. You always want to do the opposite of what's being done. So right now we're multiplying. That means we need to divide by 10.27 and divide both sides by 10.27. And the reason for that is because on the right side here, now we've got 10.27 divided by 10.27. Well, that's just 1. So they cancel each other out, because now it's just 1 times R, which is just R. Now R is on its own. Okay, so if I do that, that's my answer. So now I've just got R on that side, and on the left side, I've got 25 divided by 10.27. So 2.43. Now you might look at that and say, well, 10.43, that's a pretty good interest rate, right? If it was 10.43% interest, that's an awesome interest rate. But we gotta be careful. This is actually still in decimal form. So that's actually not 2.4%. What we need to do now is multiply by 100 to put this into a decimal. That's how bad this interest rate is. So if we multiply this by 100, so that here, 2.43 times 100% is going to be equal to 243%. That's a bad interest rate. Well, to give you a bit of perspective here, let's say that we borrowed $250. So I'm just going to write in $250. I'm going to multiply it by when it was the decimal. That was 2.43, right? That's 243%. So that's how much you would have to pay back. Not even just in total, right? That's how much money in just interest you would have to pay on your loan. So imagine if you just borrowed $250 and didn't pay it back for a year from these payday places, you'd owe more than double what you even borrowed, which is pretty crazy. Okay, now number 2, I'm going to let you do 2A on your own, and I'll give you a hand with B. So it says Hayden borrowed $400 and paid back $415 in 10 days. Well, the question is going to be the same as the one we did above. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and try that now. So go ahead and do 2A now. Okay, so what you should have got for an answer was R is equal to 1.37 is what you should have found for R after it was in the equation. I is equal to PRT. So when you solve for R, you should have got 1.37. And then we would have multiplied this by 100 to get, so that times 100%. So R would be 137%. Okay, so that's how much we have to pay in interest per year, right? So now the next question just says, what was the daily interest rate? So the only difference here is that when we were looking for our yearly interest rate, in the spot for time there, we put that in years, right? When it was like an annual interest rate. So that's what we put for time. Now, I is equal to PRT. All you would do is just put that as number of days. So which is actually even easier, right? So now instead of converting that into years by going 10 divided by 365 like you did in the question above, now we're just going to put 10 in there because it's 10 days. And then that's it. You can, and then just solve for R the same way. The other way of doing it, so you could do that, do the math similar to what you did above, or since we've already got our yearly interest rate figured out, if I go 137% in a year, and I want to know what there is in a day, well, there's 365 days in a year. So what I'm going to do is just divide that by 365. So that's going to be 0.0375. And if I multiply that by 100, so I'll just go that times 100, that ends up being 3.75%, which is pretty crazy. 3.75% per day. That seems like a lot. It wouldn't take very long to add up to quite a lot of money. Okay, number 3. I'll help you set this one up. So again, we're just going to be starting off with our formula. I is equal to PRT. It says Chantel borrowed $200 from a payday loan store. So what I like to do is as they come up, you can put the numbers in. So borrowed $200, that's your principal. So I'm just going to write in $200 right now. Okay. She paid back the loan plus interest 7 days later. So we know what the interest rate is this time too. Well, hold on to that 7 days later thing. But then the interest rate was 395% per annum. So so then what we're going to do is rewrite this interest rate as a percent, or as a decimal, I mean, sorry. So we're going to change that. All you do is divide by 100, right? Or move the decimal place over 2 times. So this would be 3.95 as a decimal. And then times t. And our time, remember, is supposed to be in years, but they've given it to us in days. So all we're going to do there is just go 7 divided by 365. And then really just multiply all those things together. And then when you're done, you should get $15.15 is what she paid in interest. Okay, number 4, it's going to be similar. We're going to start off with I is equal to PRT. But now we just need to look out for what we're looking for, right? So it says borrowed $500. Well, that's my principal. 25 days. Well, I just need to convert that into years by going 25 divided by 365. That's what we're going for time. We've got 1.12% per day. Ooh, and actually scratch that. What we're going to do, I fibbed to you. 25 days up here. We're actually going to leave this in days, and the only reason why is because they've given us our percent in days. It says per day. So it doesn't really matter. You can leave it in days or years as long as they're both the same. So since we could change the years if we wanted to, both of them, but let's keep it simple and just put 25 days in for our time, and then 1.12% in for R, changing it to a decimal though, right? We don't want it as a percentage. And then how much did she have to repay? Okay, well, once you do that, you're going to be able to figure out what I is, right? So you'll figure out how much interest she paid. And then the last part, just remember, is that to figure out the total, we usually call that I, is just going to be equal to your premium plus your interest. So whatever you figure out for your interest, you just add $500 to it, and that's going to give you your total. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and do number 4 now. All right, number 5. Helen agreed to pay $781.50 to a company that lent her $750 at a 1.05% per day. It's going to be important. How many days did she have the money? All right, so now what I would do is write down the formula again. I is equal to PRT. And what are we looking for? Well, it says, how many days did she have the money? Well, the only thing we measure in days is going to be time. So in the end here, we're looking for time, right? How much time went by. I see that they've given us a rate or percentage, right? So I've got R figured out. They lent her $750, so that's my principal, P. And then lastly, what's I? Well, I is going to be the interest that she paid. I can figure out the interest that she paid by taking how much she actually did pay them back and subtracting how much she originally owed. So I'm going to do that first. Let's figure out what I is equal to. So I is going to be 781.50 minus 750. So $31.50. Okay, so now I can plug everything in. So I'm just going to keep using my formula here, plugging in numbers as I go. So instead of an I, I'm going to put down $31.50 in interest. I'm going to put down $750 for my principal. My interest rate, remember I need to change it into a decimal though, it can't be as a percentage, so move the decimal twice or divide by 100. So it's going to be 0.0105. And then remember, since that's in days, then the time that we're going to find is also going to just be in days. So we don't know what time is yet, so I'm just going to leave that as a T. Okay, now it's just multiplying stuff. One thing you might want to do to make sure that you don't make a mistake is just do this bit first. Go 750 times my rate. So let's go 750 times 0.0105. That's 7.875 T, and it's still 31.50 on this side. All right, now last thing we got to do is just get rid of this 7.875. And the way we do that is by not subtracting, because we are multiplying. We got to do the opposite of that. So divide by 7.875 on both sides. 7.875. So 31.50 divided by 7.875 is 4. So it's going to be 4 days went by. So that'd be measured in days. All right, so we've done ones like this already. I'm going to let you figure this out. So it says number 6, Hans borrowed $1,000 for 60 days at a rate of that much per day. How much will he have to repay? And then what is the annual interest rate? So I'm going to let you answer both. So go ahead and answer 6A and B now. Okay, moving on. Okay, now we're going to talk about borrowing money from usually a bank to have like a payday place. So like in this example, it says Stanley borrowed $4,500 from his credit union to do some home renovations. The loan has an annual interest rate of 5.75% and an amortization period of 3 years. So you have 3 years to pay it all back, right? You will need the personal loan payment calculator on page 320. That's the next page. So if you go to the next page, that's this one, is what they're talking about. And it says, what is Stanley's monthly payment? So if I go back to that table, so just remember that it's over 3 years, right? The way this table is going to work is it says personal loan payment calculator, and it's monthly payment per $1,000 borrowed, and then interest compounded monthly. All right. So the way this works is we figure out, okay, so it's going to be a 5.75%, right? Interest rate. Is that right? I can't remember. 5.75, yeah. So we're looking in this row, and then it was over 3 years. So all we do is just match it up here. So that's going to be 30.31. But the only thing to remember here is just that this table is per $1,000. So that's how that's going to work. So if you borrow more than that, let's say like in this case, they borrowed $4,500. Well, what you do to figure that out is I would go $4,500 divided by 1,000. So 4,500 divided by 1,000, 4.5. So what that means is that if I have 4.5 like thousands, if that makes sense. I've got 4.5 of these, right? Which means my monthly bill is going to be 4.5 of these then, right? Of how much you'd have to pay. I'm not going to pay $30.31 because that would only be for $1,000. I need to pay $30.30 times 4.5. Yeah, hopefully that made sense. All right, so what we're going to do is just skip to the next question here. So it says, for these questions, you will need that same table we were using. Calculate the monthly payment, the total amount paid, and the finance charge for the following loans. All right, so 7A is $3,000 at 9% for 2 years. All right, so we need to find 9% on the table and 2 years on the table. So let's go back. All right, so we need 9%. So there. And then 2 years, so that's going to be this one, right? So 45.68 is what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm just going to do it on this page so we can make a bit of sense of this. So 45.68, so that's going to be, remember, per $1,000, right? So what I need to do is go 3,000, because that's how much we borrowed, divided by 1,000, because that's what this calculator is telling us. So that's going to be 3, right? So that's 3. So I need to go 3 times that number, 3 times 45.68. So we need to go 3 times 45.68, $45.68. So 137.04. So now we figured out that they are going to pay, wish I would have left myself some more room here, $137.04 per month, right? So now it just says, so that was the monthly payment. We got that figured out. Now the total payment. So now we just need to figure out how much you pay in total. So it's that much per month. Well, let's just start off with that. So if I want to figure out the total payment, it's going to be $137.04. And then I'm just going to multiply my way up. So that's how much it is per 1 month. So I know that there are 12 months in 1 year. So I'm going to multiply that by 12 first to figure out how much it would be per year. So the number is still in there, so I'll just go times 12. So it's going to be 1,644.48. Okay, that's how many dollars it would be per year. And then there's going to be over 2 years. So let's just multiply that by 2. So it's just that. So times 2. So just that times 2. So 3,288.96. Okay, so that's it. That's how much you'd actually pay in total. Okay, so that was the second part of it. And then the last one, the finance charge part of it, is just going to be the difference. So how much did you pay extra, I guess? So in that case, it's just going to be the total amount that I paid. So 3,288.96. That's a dollar sign. Minus how much I actually borrowed. So that's just $3,000. So minus 3,000. So that's going to be $288.96. Okay, so that's how you do these ones. The rest of them are really the same thing. If you want, just for the sake of time, we can skip C. But I'm going to get you to do this process that I just did above for B. So go ahead and answer 7B now. Okay, number 8 Adele wants to buy a used car that cost $2,900. She has $1,100 saved up for a down payment. How much will she have to borrow? Well, that's just the difference between them. So the car is going to cost this much. So she just has to subtract how much she actually has. So $1,800. Okay, and then next page here. B, so she can get a loan at $650 per annum with amortization of 2 years. What will be her monthly payment? So this again is just straight from that table again. So 6.5, and it's over 2 years. So that's it right there, $44.55. So it's going to be $44.55, but just remember that that's only per $1,000. So remember that we borrowed, sorry about all the flipping back and forth, we borrowed $1,800. So we need to start out with $1,800 divided by $1,000. So that's going to be 1.8. Okay, so now it's going to be 1.8 times that number we found. So we need to go 1.8 times, what did we say it was? 44.55. $80.19. All right, that's how much it's going to be per month. So now, what will be the total she pays for the loan? Well, that's how much it was per month. It's over 2 years. So go ahead and just multiply up, figure out how much you're actually going to pay in total. So I'll let you guys answer 8C now. Okay, 8D, how much will the car cost? Well, that's just remembering that you put the down payment down, right? So whatever you got from C, just plus that initial down payment that you already had. So just add them together. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and answer 8D now. Okay, practicing your new skills questions. Okay, so for some of these questions, you will need to use that page, that one. Oop, I'm all over the place. Okay, number 1. Shay needed $850 cash to pay an emergency vet bill. He went to a payday loan store and agreed to pay $950 on payday, which is 12 days away. What is the daily interest rate for the loan? So remember these ones. Start off with that equation. I is equal to PRT. We're looking for R in the end, right? So just fill in what we know. So if you want the interest that we paid, well, that's how much he's actually going to pay minus how much it actually cost, right? So the payday loan store gave him $850. He actually had to pay that much. So the difference there is the interest. Okay, the principal is going to be how much we actually put down, or how much like there was originally, so 850, right? And then time is 12 days away. And that's perfect because we were looking for what's the daily interest rate. So we don't need to change this 12 into years or anything like that. Just keep it as a 12. So other than that, okay, sorry. And then, so figure that one out for your daily interest rate. And then what is the annual interest rate? Well, what I would do is just multiply that by however many days are in a year. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and do number 1A and B now. Okay, number 2. Carmen borrowed $250 from a payday loan store and agreed to repay it in 18 days at a rate of 1.17% per day. how much did she have to repay? Okay, so again, I is equal to PRT. You have a bunch of info. Let's say we've already got P, we've pretty much got R, and we've got T. Notice that our interest rate is in per day, and our time is already in days, so that's easy. And then just figure out your interest rate. But remember, how much did she have to repay? That's going to have to be your interest plus the original amount, right? Okay, so go ahead and answer number 2 now. Okay, number 3, calculate the monthly payment, the total amount paid, and the finance charge for the following loans. Okay, number 3, calculate the monthly payment, the total amount paid, and the finance charge for the following loans. Okay, so what we're going to have to do on these ones, remember, is look at our table. So this much money for 8% per annum for 3 years. Well, that's just this table, right? So we're just matching up the percentage along the side, and then the time or the term in years. And then the last thing to remember, though, is that this is for only $1,000 borrowed. So we need to, first step, divide this 2,500 by 1,000, and then multiply the amount per month in that by whatever that number is. So hopefully you remember that. I'm actually going to take C off for you guys just to make it a little bit less redundant. So go ahead and answer 3. Actually, you know what? I'll take off B too. If you can do it once, you could probably do it more than that. So we'll just do A. So go ahead and answer 3A, all the parts though, right? So there's going to be 3 of them. So monthly payment, total payment, and finance charge. So go ahead and answer 3A now. Okay, number 4. Jackson borrowed $5,000 from the bank to buy a car. The loan has an annual interest rate of 7% and the amortization of 2 years. This is going to be really the same type of question as the one above. So go ahead and answer for A, B, and C now. And we're actually going to skip number 5 too, so I'll let you not do number 5. Okay, so that's it. The next one is going to be the Chapter 6 test. Okay, so that's going to be it for that video.